You're listening to Talkline with Zev Brenner, America's premier Jewish broadcast on the air since 1981.
And now, here's your host.
And we're back. We're introduced to Dan Huff. He was a senior advisor to President Donald Trump in the White House during his first administration. Prior to that, he was General Deputy Assistant Secretary for Enforcement at HUD. He has served as counsel to the chairman of both the Senate and the House Judiciary Committees. Prior to coming to Washington, he was a management consultant for McKinsey & Company in New York City. He's a graduate of Columbia Law School. He's been featured in numerous outlets, including the Wall Street Journal, Politico, Fox News, LA Times. Nothing beats me, of course, being here on Talkline. He's also on the board of a publicly traded semiconductor company, as well as the U.S. Holocaust Memorial Museum, Washington, D.C. He's also the founder of Shiddichim for non-Jews, conservative dating app, Right Stuff, backed by legendary Silicon Valley investor Peter Thiel. Dan, welcome to the program. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me. It's an honor to be on with you and your listeners.
Well, thank you. I thank Rabbi Silver from the Israel of Long Beach for introducing us. So I know you're doing a lot of interesting things. How'd you end up in the Trump White House, at least in the first administration?
I mean, the short answer is I wound up there through a friend, but the longer answer is a little more interesting. When I was in law school, I did a summer internship in Washington. I befriended a very interesting fellow named Marcus. I won't give his full name. You may not appreciate that. And then a couple of years later, I got a call from Marcus, and he said, how would you like to work in the Trump administration? And how do you like to work at the Department of Housing and Urban Development? And I said, I would not. And he said, well, just come meet this guy, James Bacon. You'll really like him. You guys think the same. And I went down there and I met James, and he had dropped out of NYU to work for President Trump. And he and I sat and we talked for an hour, and it was like we were of like the same mind, right? What do you call it? What is it? Safa achos udvarim achadim. And we were sitting there, and he said, listen, I'm trying to build a team here, really pro-Trump guys. Please come down and consider working for me. We'll give you any job that's available. I met with Secretary Carson. We had a great conversation because I didn't even really want the job. So I was very open, and he loved it, and started working there. Got kind of frustrated after a couple months that I wasn't getting a whole lot done. And I'll try to abbreviate the story, but I was in this office, a beautiful mahogany office overlooking the Potomac and the airport. And I was thinking, what am I doing here? I can't get anything done. I'm being stymied by even political people. Like, if only I could get to the White House and get into a position where I could help appoint people, that would really be good, because then we could get all the bad people out. And then at that exact moment that I was thinking, like, what am I doing here? Why did I move down here? There was like a storm coming. I got a notification on my phone that said that the person who'd run the office at the White House where they were appointing people had left, and they'd appointed this guy, John McEntee. And John McEntee is very good friends with James Bacon, the guy who brought me into HUD. So I texted James, I said, did you see this? And he said, not only did I see it, I'm with John right now in the White House. And make a long story short, I soon got over there with them and wound up being the lawyer in the White House for PPO, the Office of Personnel, which basically appoints all the people high to low who are political appointees of administration. And it was the best job I ever had. And we got to do a lot of really amazing stuff with President Trump himself.
Any plans to join the current administration? You had a good time the first time around. Why aren't you joining them again this time?
Well, they offered me one or two things. I turned it down politely. I really want to work with my team, and I didn't have an opportunity to come back there with the same team that was there. And so just, doing things on the outside right now. And I'm helpful. I mean, I wrote a big piece in the Wall Street Journal about using injunction bonds, which is a very technical legal thing. But the basic idea is that all these judges who are stopping the Trump administration from implementing their policies, really what should happen is when you get a preliminary injunction, the parties seeking it, these activist plaintiffs, are required to post bond. They should be putting up money to cover the compliance costs in case the courts later overturn the injunction, which is happening a lot. Trump's winning, months later. But in the interim, there's compliance costs, and those things should be covered by the plaintiffs, and they should be losing money whenever those things are ultimately overturned. But they haven't been doing it. But after I wrote that article, President Trump saw it, and he told the Justice Department to start seeking these bonds. So thank goodness that's happening more and more. So hopefully,
we're in good graces, Administrator. I assume you're going to go to the Hanukkah party in the White House.
The Hanukkah party is legendary, particularly for the lamb chops.
Right.
So
they're very good. The lamps are great.
Outstanding. So yeah, well, we'll see. We'll see if they invite me this year. There's a lot of people on the list, but the years I went was unbeatable.
Now, Thomas Rose, you probably know him. He worked with the Vice President's office, Vice President Pence. He told me there was the app where you had kosher food daily, you had a minyan daily, you even had a sukkah. So Orthodox Jewish life was really very special. Can you comment on that?
Yeah, I mean, I had two things I liked a lot. One is that Jared Kushner read the Megillah for us. at the White House on Purim. And another thing was that we wound up having a minyan for Rosh Hashanah the first night in the White House. This is already during COVID, but that was a beautiful thing too, and I had the privilege of leading it. So yeah, that was wonderful. But it sort of actually really irritated me when Biden took over, and there was all these articles saying the joke in the White House is that there's a minyan. There's not a minyan. There's like 10 Jewish people in the White House who can't like read a Gemara. But in the Trump White House, you had people who could actually learn who were there. There's no comparison.
Well, also, I think in the Obama White House and probably the Biden White House, when they had a Pesach Seder, I think they had a Pesach Seder during the Obama. I'm for sure they did. I don't know if they had during the Biden years. I would guess that they probably did. But I guess the Seder was quite different, especially when it said Lashon Haba Yerushalayim next year in Jerusalem. I think it was a different connotation depending who was president.
Yes. No, I think that's exactly right. But the Trump administration was very friendly to the Jews. I used to wear my kippah with President Trump in the Oval Office, and I had just a wonderful experience there.
What was your interaction like with President Trump?
So, I always tell people we did stuff off the books and on the books when I was there. So the on the book stuff was, I would advise on the legal questions regarding appointments, firings, can you fire, the Fed chairman, stuff like that. But off the books, Trump would have us in the Oval Office, me and John McEntee and James Bacon, and just ask us, various opinions on all sorts of different matters. One thing about Trump is he loves hearing from different people their ideas, and then he makes a decision. And it was a fantastic thing. It was a real privilege and honor to be there. And one thing about Trump is when you walk in there and sit down, he makes you feel extremely comfortable. And anyone who's met him could tell you that he's very good at making people feel very comfortable with him.
Give us an example of something off the book stuff that you spoke to him about.
Well, okay, this is pretty.
Was there anything to do with Jeffrey Epstein?
Nothing to do with Jeffrey Epstein. Never came up. But I guess there was it used to be that. Okay, so Pocahontas, as he calls her, the senator from Massachusetts, Warren, terrible anti-Israel senator. Anyway, she had passed a law to make it seem like she was.
You're talking about Senator Elizabeth Warren.
Yes, Senator Warren, and she was trying to make it seem, I think, like she was pro the military. So she said you should have to fly the flag of the prisoners of war flag every day. At the White House. Now, the regular rule for the prisoner of war flag, which is sort of a black and white flag, is that it flies on Memorial Day and certain other days, Veterans Day, and it's a special thing, and you don't do it every day. But she wanted to make it every day. It should fly at the White House. And the problem is that it actually, aesthetically, it doesn't look like it looks like an ISIS flag from far because it's black and white. So you have the beautiful White House, you've got the American flag on top, and this sort of, it looks like an ISIS flag underneath. And Trump thought that he wanted to follow the law, but he felt like aesthetically, is there something else we can do? So he asked us to take a look at that. So I sat down and I thought about it for like 30 minutes and I read the law and I realized that what it said was, yes, you have to fly it every day at the White House, but it didn't say it has to be on the main flagpole. It has to be on the White House grounds. So we went around and we found another piece of the property that was very beautiful. And we set a little memorial there and put up a flag and it flew there. And it was actually a very nice memorial to the fallen soldiers, but it wasn't, marring the skyline, so to speak. And, on the appropriate days, it's moved over there. But for the rest of the year, it was in this place. So that's a small example. There were some more significant things, as you might imagine, but I can share that.
Anything else you can share? That
I think that's a very good one.
We're trying to get to the juicy stuff.
Well, I'll give you another example, but this one is okay. So Trump didn't like this. There's a rule called the Affirmatively Further Fair Housing Rule that HUD issues. It basically says that you have to build high density, low income housing in suburban areas if you want to get government funding. So if you take grant funding from the Department of Housing and Urban Development, you have to essentially eliminate your zoning laws and allow, again, high density, low income housing in suburban areas. That's kind of the rule. And they do this vigorously, and the Obama administration pushed it and the Biden administration pushed it. And there's a political dimension to it. They're trying to turn red areas blue. That's what they're doing politically. But it's sort of like this weird, unholy alliance between like the political activists who want to turn the red areas blue and the developers who just want to be able to build whatever they want, without restriction. So they've been pushing that. Trump hates that stuff. He wants suburban areas to be suburban. He wanted it gotten rid of. And he told HUD, get rid of this. And he told them this for years, and they didn't get it done. So one day we were in the Oval Office with him, and he said, listen, like, we need to get rid of this. And John McEntee, who was the head of the office and very close to Trump and sort of knew exactly what to say when, said, oh, well, my guys used to work at HUD, so they know all about this. They'll take care of it. So Trump said, you guys, I want you to get rid of it. So in 14 days, start to finish, me and James Bacon, we got rid of the whole thing. So for 3 years, HUD worked on it, and we got rid of it in literally 14 days. And it would have been faster too, but we gave some time to some people to look at something. And it really was because we were committed to getting rid of it. It was something we wanted to get rid of before, weren't able to do. And we found certain, they're not loopholes, but we read the law and saw it was actually required. And we were able to, in fact, eliminate the rule and restore the law to its original meaning from the 1965 Fair Housing Act. And people were astonished that we did that. People came and said, wow, like, we can't believe that you were able to roll it back and restore the original meaning and get rid of all this accumulated regulatory burdens. And the key to all of it was that when you pass rules in government, there's something called the Administrative Procedures Act, the APA, and it causes all kinds of problems, get people bogged down. And the biggest part of it is requiring notice and comment of new rules. You have to put them out there. You have to let people comment on them. But it turns out that rules respecting grants relating to government grants don't require notice and comment. And that's a major, major exception, because all this had to do with accepting government money. It was a grant related matter. So we pointed this out to the White House counsel, and he's like, what? Why didn't we know this? I says, I don't know why you didn't know it, but it's the law. So sure enough, we were able to dispense with that whole long process. We got it done in 14 days. That was a very substantive thing. Trump liked that a lot. So that we were very proud of that.
And one of the things I'm intrigued at what you're doing Shiddichim for non-Jews, for conservative people who are non-Democrats, or non-liberals, or conservative. Tell us about that, what it's all about, and how is it working out?
So that is a very fun project, and it is called Right Stuff app. It is a dating app for political conservatives, and Peter Thiel put some initial money in, and we had it up, and it's out there. And really, the reason we did this was that after we left the Trump administration, we realized that there were sort of parallel economies, right? And that the left, at the time, they controlled Twitter and they controlled YouTube. They saw video content, discussions online, and there was nothing on the right-wing side. And people were getting canceled all the time and kicked off. So conservatives started Rumble as a competitor to YouTube, and they had Getter as a competitor to to what was then Twitter. And we said, well, we don't have a right-wing dating app. And there's a lot of popular dating apps out there, Tinder and Bumble and Hinge, but all those apps are run by these left-wingers who go out of their way to exclude people on the right. So what do I mean? So it's both the platforms and the users. So the platforms, for example, Bumble, they had a rule that if you wanted to use the app, you had to affirm that you supported BLM, Black Lives Matter. You literally couldn't get on the app unless you said, yes, I support it. So you had to confess.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it was crazy. It's off the wall, and there was no way around it. And they do other things too. They allow you to put little stickers to say like things that causes you support, but it's all these left-wing causes, abortion and crazy stuff, LGBTQ, things like that. There's nothing for First Amendment. There's nothing for Second Amendment. There's nothing for pro-life. There's none of that. So the platforms themselves don't like that. And in fact, I personally know people who were kicked off for having photos on their application, on their profiles that said like, America first and stuff like that. They literally would kick you off, and that was it. There was no appeal. So the platforms are biased, but so are the users. If the users see that you're conservative, they'll constantly put things like, left, Trump supporters swipe left, meaning like, we don't want you, get away. And so there's a ton of that on there. And in fact, this is anecdotal, but it's also statistical. They did an analysis, and they found that 70% of young Democrats, young liberals, say they wouldn't date a conservative. Now, you have that the other way too, but it's only 30%. So they're really, quite intolerant. So we're like, we need this. So we created it, and we've got, before 400,000 downloads. We have 75 marriages that we know of,
wow,
at least one baby. So we're very proud of that. And just actually right after Tisha B'Av, we had an event in the Upper West Side where we unveiled our new filter for Jewish. So it was for non-Jews, but now we have.
But now you have a Jewish. Well, there used to be Senator Rudy Boschwitz, who used to be a Republican senator. He was known as Senator Matchmaker years ago.
Yes, that's right.
So you're doing something for Jews. So what are you doing for the Jews?
So we added a filter, which means if you'd have the app downloaded, you can filter it so you're only matching with other Jewish people who are conservative. That's very useful for Jews because unfortunately a lot of our people are left wingers. So if you say, if you're able to filter with Jews on our app, you can find people who are politically aligned. And the point of the app, by the way, isn't so you can sit and speak politics. Like, that's fine if you want it, but that's not the point. The point is to get that out of the way so you can have a normal relationship and not have to worry about that interfering. I was at a shul in LA, and a guy told me on Shabbos, he says, my wife and I got a divorce because I voted for Trump. Now, I don't think I think that was probably like the Makat Bapatish, like the last thing I don't think that was why. But unfortunately, you hear stories that there are such things. So,
I'll tell you, after Trump was elected, we always had people come to our Shabbos table. So we had somebody who was a Donald Trump supporter and a Hillary Clinton supporter. A woman was the Hillary Clinton supporter, and this gentleman was the Trump supporter. They almost came to blow at the Shabbos table. For only time that we've had that, and basically because he supported Donald Trump. So she was a short woman, was ready to attack. So I had to really calm everybody down. But the passions were high, so it's possible. Even though you're probably right, there's probably more to it than the fact he voted for Trump.
Yeah. But now you hear these things that it's troubling. But we have the solution. So it's called Date Right. So if you're in the market, have a look.
Dan Huff is our guest. He's a former senior advisor of President Trump in the White House during his first term. He has many involved in different projects, but his latest one is dealing with Shiddichim for non-Jews, and now it's for Jews as well. And he's also involved with so many other different ideas as well. We're going to be right back. Don't go away. Stay tuned. And of course, if you'd like to join in our conversation, our numbers are 212-769-1925. If you want to meet a conservative, I'm talking about a small C, who's Jewish, well, maybe we can help you tonight. 212-769-1925. Want to talk about the Trump White House? Certainly you can do that as well. You can also WhatsApp us at 212-769-1925. Email is a wonderful way to get your questions answered. Zev@talklinenetwork.com, Zev@talklinenetwork.com. A little later on this morning, we'll introduce you to Rebbetzin Orit Esther Ryder. She is embracing Emunah. She went from MS. She had MS to MS. She's a spiritual healer, and she's getting some nice approbations. We'll introduce you to her during the course of this broadcast as well. Just a reminder, we're still giving out tickets to stand-up comedy with Dovi Newberg, an up-and-coming new star. It's going to be at the Little Beach Synagogue at this coming Thursday night, August 28th at 1 Fairway Road. It's at 8 p.m. If you want to win a pair of tickets, we're giving away some more tickets. Again, our email address is zev@talklinenetwork.com. Please put Dovi in the byline. We need your name, address, and zip code to qualify. You want a pair of tickets? They're worth about $54 each, so it's a $108 value. If you want to win a pair of tickets, you can come from Queens and Brooklyn. I know from the five towns. Again, that's zev@talklinenetwork.com, and put Dovi in the byline. We're going to be right. Oh, by the way, 1 week from tonight, Rabbi Yosef Blau, among our guests, he is the former Mashgiach Ruchni at Yeshiva University. He spearheaded an effort of 80 modern Orthodox rabbis to criticize the Israeli government to provide humanitarian aid for Gazans. He'll be among our guests 1 week from tonight. And those that are asking me, we were supposed to have on tonight a show dealing with the Lakewood controversy of a Cohen who married a woman whose mother was a convert to Judaism. There's a question, was he a Cohen? Was the conversion of the mother okay? And the Bezdin ruled that he can get married, but now the Bezdin's under trouble. We were supposed to have the father of the young man come on the show tonight, but from what I was told, there were a lot of threats since I announced the last, including death threats. So he's not appearing on the show. We will cover the topic at a future broadcast as well. We're going to be right back. Don't go away. Stay tuned. This is the Talkline Network. I'm Zev Brenner.
You're listening to Talkline with Zev Brenner, America's premier Jewish broadcast on the air since 1981.
And now, here's your host.
And we're back. Dan Huff joined us for a little while longer, senior advisor to President Trump in the White House during the first term of President Donald Trump. He's been involved in other aspects of government. He's involved in business. He's also on the board of a publicly traded semiconductor company, but he's most proud of being Shiddichim for non-Jews. He's the founder of the conservative dating app Right Stuff, backed by legendary Silicon Valley investor Peter Thiel. So let's talk Jewish Shiddichim. So how many, have you made any yet, or is this too new?
We have, well, look, I mean, we only know people who contact us and let us know. So I'm not aware of any Orthodox Shidduchim yet. But like I said, we just launched the Jewish filter, so I expect more soon.
Now, you match Orthodox with Orthodox. What have you been getting so far?
Well, so far, it's really just Jewish broadly. I think, you know, as time goes on, we'll maybe have it filtered a little more specifically. But for now, we're just matching Jewish broadly and leave it to the couples to sort it out.
Now, you mentioned earlier that some of the other dating sites, the very popular ones, discriminate against conservatives. If you're a Trump supporter or a Republican, they'll boot you out or blacklist you. Is that legal?
Yeah, I mean, you know, the discrimination laws basically protect everybody unless you're a straight white person or, you know, a political conservative. Basically, you know, they can discriminate on the basis of
they can discriminate. They're allowed to.
Yeah, political orientation. Sure, they can, because it's really only racial or religious that you have that as a private company.
No, they say they don't want to let the Jews date, that they would get into trouble. But if they say you're a conservative and I don't like the fact that you voted for Donald Trump, they can get away with it.
Exactly, because, you know, non-government entities are not required to provide people with First Amendment rights as a general rule.
Crazy. I guess that applies to some of the companies like TikTok and Google, and some of the other ones also have discriminated against Republicans.
Yeah, and they do it. Look, you know, there was a famous hearing in front of the House Judiciary Committee. This was, I think, in 2017, 2018, where there was accusations that they were essentially shadow banning or, you know, essentially submerging conservative content so that it couldn't be seen. And the CEOs, especially of, well, you know, Jack Dorsey from Twitter came, no, this isn't true. This isn't so. It couldn't be. And
they lied.
Yeah, elite opinion was like, oh, well, you heard them. They don't do that. Of course they don't. And then, you know, Elon Musk takes over, looks at the books, and it's clear they have special suppression buttons. So it was a complete lie, a complete fabrication, and everything people thought was going on was going on. And it's a good lesson, by the way, that like all these sort of like technical things that people are telling you in statistics, they shouldn't really count for that much against good anecdotal evidence. And I actually saw a podcast about this where there's a certain famous tech entrepreneur on, and he said that, you know, in his experience, if you have statistical evidence telling you one thing and you have anecdotal evidence telling you the other thing, almost all cases the anecdotal evidence is correct and the statistical stuff is essentially measuring the wrong thing. And he gave certain examples, and I think that's quite true. If you have a sense that something's happening a certain way, it probably is, and the data that shows contrary is really just, it's measuring something, but you're not measuring the right thing, and you should be paying attention to what you're hearing.
I just find I guess it's legal, but it's not kosher. What can I tell you?
It's not kosher. You know, look, I mean, I think that there are situations where, you know, if you own a company, you don't want to, look, you know, you're a pro-Israel guy, you run a company, you don't want to have people running around supporting Gaza. Like, I understand that too, but it's a little bit different when you're serving the public and trying to match people up, and sort of the premise of it is there's different people with different preferences.
I just hope, are there any dating sites that you know about that's pro-Hamas, pro-Palestinian, where they say if you're Jewish, you know, we're not going to let you onto this site?
Not that I know of, but there could be such, you know, it wouldn't surprise me. You could have some Muslim sites or something like that where people are pretty much not pro-Israel. But don't worry, you'll get plenty of anti-Israel Jews on those sites too. So, you know.
Right. Yeah. Unfortunately, we live in crazy times.
Yeah.
Do you know, by the way, when you were there in the Trump White House, as I mentioned earlier, there was a daily minyan, there was kosher food, there was, you know, sukkah. Do we find the same thing during this time around? Do you know?
I think, you know, there's a lot of guys. I personally know some Orthodox people who are very high levels. I don't know those specific things if they have it there, but you know, I think there's every reason to believe that that it's still very well represented, in the White House and the administration.
Wow. So, and you still touch with the president, or?
No, I actually haven't spoken to him in a while. The people that I know, speak to him regularly, but I haven't personally spoken to him.
He doesn't want to pick your brain anymore about different projects?
Not yet. Maybe he'll hear this now. It could be.
We got to send it to the White House immediately. You got to give it. If they offer you a job, would you go back?
Well, they did offer me a job, and it wasn't something I felt made sense for me to do. But there's certain jobs that if they offer me, I would take. But as I said, look, I wrote this thing on injunction bonds. He read that. He liked it. I mean, I'm still helping them out from the outside. And
how would you rate Trump 2 as a person, Trump 1?
Oh, I mean, I think by all measures, it's a fantastic improvement. I mean, just the way you think about things, the way you talk about things matters, and they're hitting so much of the culture war stuff now. It's so important. Even looking at the museums, it's disgusting. You go to these museums and all they talk about is like anti-white, American, all this garbage, and it's in these things that the taxpayers pay for, and they're getting rid of it. But like, looking at that is important, and I think people on the other side will say, well, why do you care? Well, the left cared enough to do it that way, and they cared because it matters. And the fact that you have people in charge now who are paying attention to those types of cultural things is very, very important. A lot of the boards that control things weren't looked at before until we got there. And these are very important too. I'll give you one quick example. The National Science Foundation. The National Science Foundation controls billions and billions, hundreds of billions in research that goes to universities and so forth. And for a long time, I think, administrations, Republicans especially, were just content to let the scientists do their science because they didn't think there was a political tinge to it. But of course there was, with DEI subverting merit and making the DEI things important. And they never thought to say, we need to make sure that the people on these boards don't want DEI, want to focus on merit as opposed to, these social considerations. And we got in there, we said, well, this is so important. And we put in 3 people who are very good, who are focused on that. And now I know that they're looking at that stuff right now. But this is something that was not focused on by prior Republican administrations because they didn't understand where the critical power centers were. And this time around, they do. They're looking at the museums, they're looking at the schools, they're looking at the boards. So I'm very pleased to see that. And now, obviously, it's all about execution, so we got to see what happens, but they're thinking about things in the right way, and that's a huge start.
No, I'm also pleased about the college campuses where they're not only stopping DEI but also holding them accountable for anti-Semitism on campus.
So, I mean, I'm glad you brought that up, and yes, very grateful Trump administration for looking at that, but I have to register a complaint, which is that, look, I think that the 2 most important aspects of how we got to where we are mass immigration from countries that hate America and hate Jews in particular, Israel. And the second thing is sort of a 30 or 40 years of left-wing indoctrination on campuses. And I'm sorry to say, but I feel that the people who run the Jewish groups, the major Jewish groups, have let us down. Over the last 30 years, they've been focused on all sorts of ancillary things on the margins instead of the 2 things that are the most important right now. And you see what's going on in the campuses. You see people getting attacked in restaurants. Well, how is this happening? What's going on? This is the worst it's been ever in my life, and I think probably in the life of many of your listeners. Since World War II, I don't think we've been in a worse position. And every year, the Federation gets about $1 billion it raises, okay? And that's been going on for many, many years. And there was a study in 2014 by, I think it was the Forward, that said that Jewish sort of groups raised like $23 billion in that year alone. So we're talking hundreds of billions of dollars over the last 30 years. And frankly, unless you were a direct recipient of that, you've considered it wasted. Because what's it going to? Conferences and dental plans and what I mean.
This week, the UJ Federation of New York is giving $1 million for humanitarian aid for Gaza.
Yeah, exactly. And why are we giving money to these organizations? And you know what else they're giving? They're giving money to HIAS, like Yamach Shemam, HIAS, the Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society. All they do is resettle Muslims in America who hate us. And they go out and they go raise money from elderly Jews who hear Hebrew and they think that they're helping Jews from Europe. That's not what's going on. Nobody should give these people a dime. Nobody should give the Federation any money either until they rethink what they're doing. Because I remember even in my show, after I got back from the Trump administration, the rabbi, a very nice, wonderful person, gave a speech where he said, we have to donate money here to help resettle Syrian refugees. Look, I get why you're thinking about that. I know the stories from the Holocaust, but the fact is it's not the same thing. These people come here, they're anti-Israel, they don't support us, and now we're reaping the whirlwind. And I'm very angry at the people who ran these Jewish organizations for the last 30 years and didn't pay attention to immigration and left-wing indoctrination on the campuses. And now we're in a situation that maybe
nobody paid attention to left-wing indoctrination campuses. It's been going on for a long time.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
After October 7th, it became more pronounced.
Correct.
And it's not, and by the way, it's not only affecting Jews. You know, everybody says the evangelical Christians, they're big supporters of Israel. They are. But guess what? The next generation of evangelical Christians are woke. They're anti-Israel. And I asked one of the pastors, why is that the case? You know what he told me? A lot of the Christian kids go to woke colleges. They come back brainwashed against Israel.
Yeah, that's terrible. But going back to your first point on this, okay, the settlement with these universities should have provided a cap on foreign students. Columbia, I went to Columbia. Columbia is about 40% or 45% foreign students. American universities should be for American students. And we certainly don't need people coming here from places that hate us. And Trump himself has said, let's have a cap. I think he said 15%. Why did those agreements not have a cap of 5% foreign students? It's an obvious thing. It was an easy thing to do. And it wasn't. And look, I think the Trump administration would have done it if the Jewish organizations insisted upon it. But they didn't. Why not? I don't know why. I'll tell you that.
Part of the problem is, Alan Dershowitz said on this program, is because these universities have Jewish studies, and the Jewish studies department have the most left-wing professors that are, and he said that's part of the problem is the Jewish studies department.
Yeah, 100%. But I'm saying right now, if you write big checks to Jewish organizations, close your checkbook until these guys get their heads on right, because it's a terrible thing that's been happening. I'll give you an example. Trump came in 2017, and he said he wanted to do, the travel ban, which frankly would have helped keep people out from countries that hate us. And you know who wrote a big letter that you shouldn't support this? The OU, the Orthodox Union, signed on to a letter that criticizes it. What the hell are they doing? Excuse my language. What are they doing? What's the matter with them? Keep your mouth shut. You don't want to support it? Fine. Don't go and attack it. What's wrong with you? They have no sense of what's important. I said before about this administration, they see where the power centers are. The Jewish groups have to see where the power centers are. It's the education on campus, and it's the immigration from the countries that hate us. And those are the things they should be focused on. And I frankly don't care about all the other stuff they're doing with all these different groups. It doesn't matter. We're in an emergency here. The house is burning down, and shame on them for being on the wrong side of things and not be focused on the right stuff. And as far as I'm concerned, they should all resign and get new leadership who knows, where the important points, where the important strategies need to be deployed.
Dan Huff, thank you for being with us. He's senior advisor to President Trump in the White House during the first term as president. He's now the founder of conservative dating app. I'm going to call it, you should call it Shiddichim for non-Jews.
Well, we have Jews now.
Now you have Jews. Okay, for non-Jews and Jews separately. Okay. But originally you were Shiddichim for non-Jews.
Correct.
But thank you for joining us, and thank you for listening. You have a fresh perspective of what's going on, and we have to hold our leadership accountable for what's going on. And the truth is, who are our leaders? That's a whole separate issue. Which
Correct. It was an honor to be on. Thank you. Have a great week.
Thank you. So there he is here on the Talkline Network, doing a great job. I'm talking about Dan Huff, senior advisor to President.